Hello, my name is Kaylee Paggio with the Office of the Washington State Auditor. The purpose of this recorded training is to provide an overview of the annual report requirements and how to determine what is required or may apply to your government. We will also have a focus on connecting the annual report components to the BARS manual, because it is very important to utilize the BARS manual instructions and accounting guidance when completing the annual report. Here is the agenda for this recorded training. We'll start out with an introduction to what the annual report is, then a brief overview of how to navigate the BARS manual, again with a focus on areas that are beneficial when preparing the annual report. Then where we will spend majority of the time is preparing the annual report components. Then we'll wrap up with some additional training and other resources that are available to help local governments file their reports. Now let's get started with our first agenda item. To get through this training, we all need to have a basic understanding of what the annual report is and the overall requirements for it. The annual report is required for all local governments in the state of Washington, regardless of size. It's essentially a compilation of a government's financial activity and other information about how the government functions and operates for the reporting year. The State Auditor's Office develops systems and forms for governments to submit this information to us and helps to ensure efficiency, accuracy, and compliance with uniform accounting. The requirement to submit the annual report is established in state law, which states the report must be submitted within 150 days after the close of each fiscal year. Since the deadline is established in state law, we are unfortunately not able to grant extensions to the deadline. Now, the primary focus of today's training is talking about the various components of the annual report. Here on the screen is a list of components that only apply to cities, towns, and counties. The first one is Schedule 06. This is a summary of your bank reconciliation and is required for all cash basis cities, towns, and counties. We do have a separate training just for the Schedule 06 on our training and workshops page, which we will show you where that's at the end of today's training. Then we have the Schedule 17. This is used to report information on public works and applies only to cities, towns, and counties, but it will depend on your individual government if it's required or not. This schedule is primarily driven by RCW, and there are separate instructions in the BARS manual on how to prepare this schedule for both cities, towns, and then counties. Lastly is the Schedule 20, which is used to report information on sales and use tax for public facilities. This is also driven by RCW and only applies to rural counties as outlined in those applicable RCWs. For the purposes of today's training, we will only be focusing on these schedules listed here because they apply to all government types. Since this is just a general list of the components, but we will be talking about each one of these in this recorded training. We will define what each component is and what the criteria is to help determine if this is required for your government type or not in more detail. Now let's get into the next agenda item, which is navigating the BARS manual. Let's start with the reporting templates. To access the templates, you will go to the SAO website, sao.wa.gov, select BARS and annual filing, and then click on BARS reporting templates. This is a snippet of what the BARS reporting templates page looks like. You can find templates for all SAO annual report schedules here, and they are pre-formatted for easy upload into the annual filing system. After reviewing the available templates, you may notice that there is no template for the notes to the CFA, or also referred to as notes to the Schedule 16, and there are no Schedule 01 templates for cities, towns, or counties. I will explain more on this when we talk about preparing the Schedule 01. And just remember that the templates are formatted very simply and are really designed as tools to import data into the filing system. And the most important thing to remember when using these templates is do not alter the basic format of them. This means do not delete or add any columns, headers, subtotals, etc. You only need to input your information where applicable and then upload it into the filing system. One of the primary focuses of today's training, as I mentioned, is connecting the use of the reporting templates to the BARS manual, because it's important to understand the instructions for preparing each template, and these instructions are found in the BARS manual. And now is a good segue into navigating the BARS manual. To reach the BARS manual, we will go to the same sao.wa.gov website and then click on BARS and annual filing, but now we are going to click the BARS cash manual. Before we start digging into the manual, let's do a quick overview of the 4 main sections of the BARS manual. And those are the chart of accounts, budgeting, accounting, and reporting. You can see 3 of the main sections, budgeting, accounting, and reporting, are the BAR from our BARS acronym. Once you have selected the BARS manual, this is the page you will see. This is the landing page, and it gives you some background information on the BARS manual. You can also print the manual by clicking the button in the top right corner that says download this manual as a PDF. This will allow you to download a physical copy to write and make notes on if that is your preferred method. The navigation panel is on the left side of your screen. You can see there are the 4 sections we mentioned a minute ago: chart of accounts, budgeting, accounting, and reporting. In addition to those, we also have the table of contents and alerts and changes. And we will take a look at each of those sections. However, we will not take a look at the table of contents. Essentially, this is where you can go to find every section in the BARS manual, the corresponding section numbers, and the links to take you directly to that section. So it is a great place to start if you're not sure how to find the section you're looking for. First, let's look at the chart of accounts, where you'll find all relevant guidance on BARS accounts. For this training, we'll primarily be focused on the BARS account export page, where you can download the full chart of accounts for your government type and basis of accounting. And in this case, we're talking about cash basis. More on this in the next few slides. But some other things that you can find in here are guidance on the basic structure of a BARS code, the applicability of codes, what the different categories of codes are, revenue sources, expenditure functions, etc. And one last thing I want to point out is the object code section. This is important to know where to find this because these are needed for reporting expenditures when you go to complete the Schedule 01. Now let's take a closer look at the BARS account export page. At the bottom of this page, you'll see this set of options. First, select your government type. If you're a city, select city or town. If you're a fire district, select fire protection district, and etc., etc. This step is really important and will help you fill out the Schedule 01 template when applicable. And for basis of accounting, since you are watching this training, we will assume that you report as a cash basis government. So you'll select that option in the drop-down menu for basis of accounting. Now for the export type, you can choose whether you want Excel or PDF. The PDF version is nice because it is print ready. So if you do like to print and make notes on that, this would definitely be your choice. The Excel version is nice because it's easy to filter and sort, and you can also readjust the columns and make notes directly in the spreadsheet if you would like. So it is really a personal preference on which one you would like to export. But I would like to also note that the PDF version is more reader friendly and is easier to read and filter through the definitions. Now for the reporting level, this has 2 options, above and prescribed only. If you select PDF, you'll automatically get above and prescribed. But if you select Excel, you can choose either option. We recommend using the above and prescribed because this will give you the categories of each bucket of BARS codes and will help explain what is in the activity in each of those buckets. And after you make your selections, click Download BARS Accounts. Now the image on the left is a snippet of the BARS account export in PDF, and on the right is the Schedule 01 template. The BARS account export will include all available codes for your government type and basis of accounting, and it includes the definition of each code. This is helpful to use when preparing the Schedule 01 template because you can see the template does not include the definitions of the codes, only the code title. Now we're moving on to the accounting section in the BARS manual. This is the best place to start if you are ever thinking, how do I record this transaction? Because having the correct accounting for your transactions helps to ensure that your annual report is accurate when you file with SAO. Some highlights in this section include accounting guidance on how to account for liabilities such as compensated absences, pension liabilities, etc. Also, an area we get a lot of questions on is how to account for interfund activities, such as interfund transfers, interfund loans, reimbursements, netting, etc. Now, within the accounting section, there is a subsection titled Accounting Principles and Internal Control, which has a lot of great resources that can help you when you file your report. A couple that I wanted to specifically highlight is the Fund Accounting and Fund Type section, which provides guidance on fund accounting and the different fund types and their corresponding fund numbers. The other section I wanted to highlight is the Beginning and Ending Cash and Investment Classification section, because this will give you an in-depth description of each classification for reporting your ending cash and investment balances, along with examples and the applicable BARS codes. This will give you more context than just what is in the chart of accounts export. Then we have the reporting section. There is, of course, a ton of great guidance in here as well, especially for the focus of today's training, since we are talking about the reporting requirements for the annual report. Some key things to remember in this section include reporting principles and requirements, which includes an overview of the annual reporting requirements based on your government type. This will give you an outline on what to look for and what to think about when determining what components are required or applicable to your government. Then the supplementary and other information and SAO annual report schedule section will include instructions on how to prepare each component of the report, such as Schedule 01, 09, etc. This is just the guidance for how to report the information and fill out the templates. We will spend more time in this section as we go, since we are focused on the reporting instructions. However, still remember that the accounting section is where you will find the guidance on how to actually account for these different transactions. That takes us to the final tab, Alerts and Changes. Every year, we review the BARS manual and make changes to clarify existing guidance or add in new guidance. The Alerts and Changes sections gives you a detailed description of what changed. I always highly recommend you review this page every year so that you know what changes were made. It's especially important to review this before you file your annual report to make sure that you are aware of any changes that will impact your report. And you'll see that the most recent reporting year changes is up at the very top. Now, when searching for BARS related topics or BARS codes, remember to use the search in the BARS manual. You can see that the text will say search BARS cash, and that indicates that you are in the right place to search for BARS related topics. We do have an exercise that we are going to do together as part of this recorded training. You can watch and just follow along with us, or if you would like to participate in the exercise, you can pause the training now and follow the steps on your screen. We are going to first navigate to the BARS Cash Manual, and we are going to use the BARS search function to search for the term drainage. So we are going to put in drainage in that search field, and we are trying to locate BARS code 53100. In the search results, we can see that we did find BARS code 53100. And reading the description, it sounds like it's the correct code for our report. But how can we confirm if it's valid for our specific government type? So to confirm that you would download your government's chart of accounts to confirm if the code is listed there, because that will indicate if it is allowable for your specific government type and basis of accounting. So the purpose of this exercise is to show how great the BARS manual search function can be, but also to caution you that just because it is in the search results doesn't automatically mean that it is allowable for your government. Now we're moving on to the next agenda item, which is preparing the annual report components. And like I mentioned earlier, this is where we will spend majority of our time today in this recorded training. We're going to start off by talking about the Schedule 01 because it is required for all local governments. The Schedule 01 is used to report the local government's financial activity for the reporting year. It is laid out similar to a bank statement and includes beginning balances, revenues, expenditures, and ending balances for all reportable funds and activities. The revenues and expenditures are reported using BARS accounts to identify the specific type of function and activity the transaction is supporting. It also shows the source of the revenue that your government receives. Each reported fund is required to balance within $1,000 in order to submit the report. But don't worry, once you're at the step of uploading the Schedule 01 into the online filing system, it will notify you if any funds are out of balance by more than $1,000. We have created Schedule 01 templates for all local government types except for cities, towns, and counties. The reason for that is because those government types utilize almost the entire chart of accounts and have more complex reporting. So there isn't a way to create a template for them. And they also use a variety of fund numbers because they have a variety of fund types. So just with efficiency, we are unable to prepare a template for them. The Schedule 01 is a component that we get most of our questions about, and we understand it can be challenging, especially for our smaller special purpose districts. For many of these districts, also referred to as junior taxing districts, the county acts as their treasurer and will produce financial summary reports similar to a bank statement. These county reports may be used to help prepare the Schedule 01. However, districts should not rely solely on these and should be using their own internal accounting records when preparing the Schedule 01. It is very important for every district to know and understand their financial activities to ensure accurate reporting, and it lessens the stress and possible errors when it's time to report to SAO. For those districts that utilize the county as their treasurer, some counties may include BARS codes on these financial summary reports, but they are not required to provide those. Even if they do, it is important to remember that the county is producing these reports using their own chart of accounts, which is different than what the district uses. Each government type has their own chart of accounts, so some codes that the county uses may not be available to the district. We really encourage each district to become familiar with their own chart of accounts and incorporate it into their internal accounting records so that it reduces the stress and confusion if using the county reports to help prepare the Schedule 01. When uploading the completed Schedule 01 template, it is important that it is in the correct format. When you navigate to the BARS reporting templates page, all templates are pre-formatted for easy upload. So the intent is for you to only input data where applicable and not alter any of the basic formatting. That means no additional headers, subtotals, etc. This applies to all SAO templates. This is an example of the format of a Schedule O1 template. As you can see, it is very basic and used only to import the data into the filing system. Columns A through E must be formatted as text and do not delete or add any columns. Column F must be formatted as number, and then you can delete any rows that do not apply or enter 0 in the amount field. As we wrap up the Schedule O1 section, I want to walk through an example exercise to help connect the importance of using the Chart of Accounts export in conjunction with the Schedule O1 template. So let's say a cash basis library district downloaded their Chart of Accounts and located BARS code 3893000. They also downloaded their Schedule O1 template to fill out, but notice that the BARS code 3893000 was not on the template. Think about why and what we have learned so far in this training. So why do you think that BARS code is in the Chart of Accounts, but not the Schedule O1 template? The reason for that is although that the code is allowable for your government type, it has further restrictions on what fund it can be reported in. So for this example, BARS code 38930 is only allowed to be reported in fiduciary funds. As you can see on the Schedule O1 template, it only includes the government's general fund. This is why downloading your government's Chart of Accounts is so important when completing the Schedule O1, so you can see if there are any further restrictions on the code's use. And it also allows you to see the complete definition of each code. Now let's move on to the Schedule O9, also known as the Schedule of Liabilities. As the name suggests, this is used to report local government's liabilities. Both current and non-current liabilities should be reported here. Some examples of liabilities for this schedule are loans, bonds, pension, environmental liabilities, leases, OPEB, etc. When reporting debt, only the face value of the principal will be reported. Do not include any items like interest, issuance costs, premiums, or discounts. It is really important to utilize the Schedule O9 instructions to identify the correct ID number to use that best matches the type of liability being reported. There are 3 debt categories that you should review to locate the correct ID number. And they are general obligation liabilities, which means you have pledged the full faith and taxing authority of your government to pay the debt. Then there is revenue and other non-GO debt, and assessment liabilities with commitments. And you can find the full definition of each of these debt categories within the Schedule O9 instructions. The Schedule O9 is a really good example of how items are split in the BARS manual. The instructions provide guidance on how to report the local government's liabilities in the annual report, which is why it's in the reporting section of the BARS manual. But the actual accounting guidance or calculation of these liabilities is found in the accounting section of the BARS manual. So let's use pension as an example. The Schedule O9 instructions provides the ID numbers to report the pension liabilities on the Schedule O9, but the actual calculation instructions is found in the accounting section of the BARS manual. Now that we know where to find the guidance and what the Schedule O9 entails, this is an example of the Schedule O9 template. As you can see, it is still very basic, just like the Schedule O1, and it's important to utilize the instructions in the BARS manual for the Schedule O9 to ensure you're using the correct ID numbers. You'll input the ID number in the description of the liability. As you can see, it doesn't need to be lengthy. Then the maturity date is only required for certain liabilities. Some liabilities, such as pension and compensated absences, are excluded from needing a maturity date. The maturity date is a fixed date for final payment of the liability. So there are some liabilities without one, and in that case, it can be left blank. But just remember, do not add or delete any columns. Then when inputting the amounts, it does need to be the whole dollar and not include any cents. If cents are included, the filing system will round the amount to the nearest dollar when uploaded. However, each line item must balance within $1, so including cents can cause variance issues even if very small. This is a visual to show the difference between the template and what is produced by the filing system. The top image is the Schedule 09 template. Then once the data is imported into the system will produce a professionally formatted version. The formatted version includes the proper headers, totals, debt categories, etc. Now let's move on to the Schedule 15. The Schedule 15 is used to report expenditures from awards received from state agencies. Since we are reporting expenditures, you would only report items on the Schedule 15 the year that the expenditures occur, so this might be different than the year you received the grant revenue. Since we are discussing award money, remember to always confirm with the state agency to see if any portion of the award is federal in origin. Federal funding always stays federal, and there are instructions on how to report any mix of state and federal funding in the Schedule 15 or Schedule 16 instructions. Now let's walk through just a quick exercise to help us understand the reporting requirements for the Schedule 15. In this example, let's say in 2024, Sample County spent $50,000 rebuilding roads that were damaged in an earthquake. The county applied and was approved for a grant from the State Department of Transportation in the amount of $25,000, which will be received in the year 2025. The first question, what year would the county report a Schedule 15? So think about what we had just discussed. They would report a Schedule 15 in the year 2024. So in their 2024 annual report, we would expect to see a Schedule 15 included. But what amount would be included on this schedule? It would be the $25,000 amount because remember, the Schedule 15 is used to report the expenditures of the state award and is reported in the year that the expenditures occurred. So in this example, they spent the money in 2024. They knew that the grant was for $25,000 but wouldn't be received until the following year. So in this example, we would report the $25,000 spent on the Schedule 15 in our 2024 annual report. Because again, this would report the expenditures that are or will be covered by the state award in the year that the expenditures occurred. Now let's look at the Schedule 15 template and how to fill that out. First, you are going to need the 7-digit prescribed BARS code that aligns with the state agency that you are reporting the award for. And then you will enter in the program title, which is the program of that award or grant. And then the identification number, that is usually just an identification number included or assigned to specific awards or contracts or agreements. However, if that is not assigned by the state agency, you can put an A for not applicable in that field. Now let's move on to the Schedule 16. This is very similar to the Schedule 15, but now we're talking about federal awards. The Schedule 16, also referred to as the CFA, is used to report expenditures from awards received directly or indirectly from federal agencies. That is important to remember that it is only reporting the expenditures that are or will be covered by the federal award. So just like the Schedule 15, it is reported in the year that the expenditures occurred. Now, direct federal awards are received directly from the federal agency, and indirect federal awards are received indirectly as a pass-through from a third party, such as a state agency, local government, etc. It is very important to remember to prepare this schedule carefully to ensure that it is accurate and complete. There are strict reporting requirements and other criteria that goes into this schedule due to audit requirements. So make sure that you are reviewing the Schedule 16 instructions within the BARS manual. When it comes to completing the Schedule 16 template, just like any of the other templates we were discussing, it is important to not adjust the prescribed format. So when filling this template out, you can actually leave the columns for federal agency name and program name blank. And when it's uploaded into the filing system, these fields will auto-populate based on the ALN that you used. ALN stands for Assistance Listing Number, and that is assigned by the federal government. This was also referred to as CFDA, but it was updated a few years ago to ALN. I also want to draw your attention to column I for pass through to subrecipients. I only want to call this one out because this can be left blank if you didn't pass any portion of the award on to someone else. But the main thing I want to mention is that this is a numerical field, so it does either need to have an amount or be left blank. And here is the final version of the Schedule 16 that gets exported from the filing system after you upload the template or manually add your data. So you can see that the template was very basic and only used to import the data. But in the filing system, it generates this pretty unprofessional version. As you can see, the federal agency and program names are included, and everything is formatted professionally and includes those applicable clusters, titles, subtotals, etc. And the Schedule 16 does have a secondary component that is required as part of the annual report, which is the notes to the CFA. This is a separate form than this Schedule 16 template and attached separately within the annual filing system. Just a reminder from earlier that there is no template for these notes. To create your notes, you'll go to the Schedule 16 instructions in the BARS manual and copy and paste the note disclosures in a Word document to complete. You will only copy over the disclosures that are required and applied to your government. Here's a snippet of what you'll see once you are in the Schedule 16 instructions. You'll find this information towards the bottom of that page, and you'll copy and paste this into a clean Word document. This helps ensure that you are using the most up-to-date note disclosures, and remember, only use what is required and/or applies to your government. Then we are arriving at the Schedule 21. This is required for all local governments and is used to report information on how the government responds to risks and payments for things like property, health and welfare, unemployment, workers' compensation, etc. Within the annual filing system, every local government is required to answer 8 questions about how they respond to these risks and liabilities, and the responses will determine if the full Schedule 21 form is required or not. Local governments may assume the risk, purchase insurance, become a member of a risk pool, self-insure these risks and liabilities. If a government does self-insure for any of the risks asked about in these questions, it will be required to attach the full Schedule 21 form with additional information regarding any claims made in the reporting year. There definitely are some complexities that go into this schedule and defining what self-insured means, so we do recommend utilizing the instructions in the BARS manual for that additional guidance. This is a snippet of what the Schedule 21 form looks like. This template is in a Word document, which is different than the other templates, which are typically in Excel. That is because this form is not uploaded and is only attached in your report within the filing system. You would complete this if you self-insure for any of those risks that we just talked about, and you'd input additional information on how you self-insure and how your program works and any claims made in the reporting year. Even though I said we weren't getting into the filing system itself, I did want to include this snippet, which is the Schedule 21 step within the filing system, because it will display those questions that are answered directly in the system. So I at least wanted to point that out. And as you can see, your responses to the questions will determine if the form is required or not. If it's not required, you'll see a red message at the bottom stating, based on your responses, this schedule is not applicable. but if it does apply to you, you will see a box allowing you to attach your completed Schedule 21 form. Now we are on to the Schedule 22. This is a questionnaire that provides information on how the government's operations function throughout the year. It also requires additional components that are attached, such as meeting minutes, bank statements, county treasurer reports, policies, etc. When completing the Schedule 22, it is important to answer the questions as accurately as possible and provide the correct attachments. Oftentimes, we see that governments will include more information than what is actually needed and required. So I wanted to provide a few tips for preparing the Schedule 22. If your government utilizes a bank outside of the county, it will be required to attach the monthly bank statements for each month and bank account for the reporting year. For the question requiring the cash balance summary reports, this is only the reports that show the year-end cash and investment balances. If using a bank account, this would be the December statement that shows your total ending cash and investment balance for the reporting year. If using the county, this would be the year-end report that reflects the total ending balances for the year. For the revenue reports, this should be a summary report that shows the total revenue received without the year and categorized by source of revenue. Auditors want to verify through a third-party document what revenue the government received in the year. If you have this as a year-end summary report, you can attach that rather than attaching the monthly revenue reports. For the detailed expenditure list, it is very important to attach reports that include all expenditures made in the reporting year. This should show each payment made by the government either through a bank account and/or the county. One last thing to remember is the Schedule 22 is a web-based questionnaire that is completed directly in the filing system. So there is no template created for this component. We have arrived at the last component of the annual report that we're going to discuss in today's training, which is the notes to the financial statements. These are required for local governments that receive more than $2 million in annual revenues and/or receive a financial or single audit. However, it's important to note that some regulatory entities, such as bond agencies, grantors, etc., may require the preparation of notes regardless of SAO requirements. These notes are intended to go along with your financial statements, and they essentially tell the story of the government's financial activities for the year. The notes help readers understand the financial statements and helps communicate information necessary for a fair presentation of financial position. As a reminder, there isn't a template for preparing the notes to the financial statements. How you would complete these is going to the BARS manual under the reporting section and locating the notes to the financial statements. You will need to identify which disclosures are applicable to your government, then copy and paste those into a Word document to start building your government's notes. It is important to remember to refrain from negative disclosures, which means you only include what applies to you rather than stating a disclosure is not applicable. We are now at our last agenda item, which is training and resources. We have several trainings and other resources available to help local governments with BARS-related topics and filing your annual report. So let's talk about what is out there so you know where to go to get help. To start us out, once you have made it into the annual filing system, you'll find our new and improved chat feature in the bottom right of the web page. This new chat support brings several new features to better assist local governments during the filing process. When opening the chat icon, you'll be greeted by our new virtual assistant and menu options for commonly requested resources such as reporting templates, error guides, training, etc. These menu options will take you to the applicable SAO webpage to access the resource or guidance. If you are not able to find what you need, continue through other options to request a chat with a filing specialist. It will require you to input some details like your name, your government name, and what your question is. then you'll be connected to a filing specialist. The best part of this new chat feature is that local governments will be able to receive some level of assistance even after SAO business hours, since the virtual chat assistant will be there 24/7 and can help direct you to commonly asked questions, links, etc. Also keep in mind that even though there are menu options, you can type into the chat a subject or topic that you are needing guidance on, and it should be able to provide you the link or resource for that topic. And a great place to start when trying to find resources related to bars and annual filing is our FAQ page. So let's take a look at some of the resources that you can find in here. And this is located under the Bars and Annual Filing tab on our home page. There is a lot of great information on this page, but I want to specifically highlight these two resources, the Handbook and Error Guide. These resources are extremely helpful to have open as you complete your report. The Handbook is a step-by-step guide on navigating the filing system and how to use the various functionalities. It also includes a summary of each component of the report, so that's a lot of what you learned today that will also be included in this handbook. Then the Error Guide is designed to help you better understand errors that you may receive in the filing system, and it will provide guidance on how to resolve those errors. Now, this is just a closer look at the handbook. You can see it is professionally formatted as a PDF. It does include a table of contents to help easily find what you're looking for. And this is just a sneak peek of what is inside the handbook. As you can see, there are screenshots and snippets, highlights, links, etc. Everything that you need to complete the annual report can be found in this handbook. Now, looking at the Error Guide, it is formatted the same as the handbook and includes a table of contents to easily find the error that you're needing guidance on. This also includes a summary of what each error category is. Within the Error Guide, you'll find every possible error that you may run into in the filing system. You'll find background information and a description of what the error is, what type of information it's looking for, etc. And it'll include tips on how to resolve the error. We also provide direct links to the applicable bar sections to help provide even more guidance. Another great place to go for help is our training and workshops page. This is where we post all of our recorded trainings and registrations for any live trainings. This can be found under the Bars and Annual Filing tab on our home page and clicking Training and Workshops. We have been working to build up our e-learnings library so that local governments can access the training they need when it's convenient for them. There are currently 12 recorded trainings on various bars topics, but I want to draw your attention to the newest trainings added, which is how to navigate the annual filing system. This is a brief recorded training on how to navigate the system and use the various features in there. Please make sure to watch the version that applies to your government's basis of accounting. Now, it wouldn't be an annual report training, even if it's recorded, if I didn't finish it off with a deadline reminder. So here is your reminder that the annual report for fiscal year ending 2024 is due by Friday, May 30th, which is 150 days after the fiscal year end for those calendar year end governments. We always encourage governments to start early to allow for plenty of time to ask questions, get help, etc. Our annual filing support team is ready to help you meet that filing deadline, so don't hesitate to reach out to us. And with that, if you do have questions and need help, please reach out to our filing support inbox, lgcsfeedback@sao.wa.gov, and one of our filing specialists will be happy to help you. We recommend using the SAO Help Desk for those more technical accounting and reporting questions. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this training, and we really hope you found value in it. Thank you and have a great day.